Alarma, alarma, bienvenidos a todos. Es un día histórica como del podium de Felipe Orts. Como nos es Issam.
Buenas tardes, todos. ¿Cómo está?
Enough to talk about today. A historical podium for Felipe Orts in Niel. What a day for Spanish cyclocross, and in general, very, very good to see. We will talk about it, but there was way more to talk about because we saw a very strong Joris Nieuwenhuis. So, without further ado, enough Spanish, let's dive into a very muddy race in Niel. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be discussing the third round of the Superprestige, which took place in Niel. The course was, compared to last year, altered slightly. The start-finish was moved, but the main features were still the same, and the biggest difference was just that it was very, very muddy this year. Lars van der had the fastest start. On the moguls, which were very early in the lap, his teammate and one of the favourites, Thibaut Nys, made a mistake. He was swallowed by the pack and fell back pretty far. Van der Haar crashed in a running section later on in that lap, and from there on we had a leading duo. It were Iserbyt and Joris Nieuwenhuis at the front of the race. Laurens Sweeck managed to bridge to them in the second lap, but was unable to really stick with them. He was dropped again and wasn't really seen at the front anymore. Nieuwenhuis led for most of the race, but on a course like this it doesn't really matter who leads in terms of effort. And we went into the final lap with Joris Nieuwenhuis and Iserbyt. But in that final lap, Nieuwenhuis made a mistake very early on. In the pits, he went in for a bike change together with Iserbyt, but at the remount, it looks like he missed his pedal or slipped somewhere because he was off his bike again. Iserbyt had a gap, and from there on, it was easy for him to take his third win in the Superprestige and the third win of the season for him. Joris Nieuwenhuis ended second, but behind, well, you already heard it by now, Felipe Orts clinched that third place. He was in fourth for most of the race, some 20 seconds behind Sweeck, but in the final two laps, Sweeck was tired and started making a lot of mistakes. He crashed a couple of times, and that was a sign for Orts to really give everything he had left and take a historical first Spanish podium in one of the major crosses. So Orts ended third. Quite some result there, Issam, with that third place of Orts, but let's talk about that in a bit. First, that battle between Iserbyt and Nieuwenhuis. What's your thought on that battle?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very slow kind of race. It was definitely not fast with the conditions and just the course in general. So, it was a bit hard to see who was stronger than the other. Every moment gave a different impression, in my opinion, but you could see that they were quite evenly matched in a way. But I think in the end, Nieuwenhuis just had very good legs and did what every other rider would do, make the most out of it and make use of the feeling that you have at that moment in the race. And I think he did. Was it the smartest race? Man, not really. But, what else should he do? I mean, at that point, with the race that we had, it was so slow. So, and he had also, his running sections were quite good compared to Iserbyt, who was struggling. Not the ideal height that he had today for this course, because it was the longer people had an advantage today, just to put it like that. And I guess Iserbyt was in a disadvantage. Definitely not a course that suits him well, but he had a good day. And I think that in the end, when we come to the last lap with the Iserbyt, that we kind of know at this point, it's going to be a difficult one. And I think that Nieuwenhuis, entering the last lap there was not much left for him to match the power and the speed that Iserbyt still had in him. And then it was just that lap too long for him, and Iserbyt, very, very strong and deserved victory from his side.
I don't think tactically the race of Nieuwenhuis was that bad because there was hardly any draft effect. As you said, it was super slow. I would rather be in the lead here because, first of all, you don't get a shitload of mud in your face. You have clear sight. You can choose your lines. And you need that because you want to avoid standing water on this course at every moment possible. I think that steep downhill dive into the mud section was really, really on the edge of what we can accept in a cyclocross race. Every year it's drama there. It's a part of land that's supposed to flood. It's super muddy. And when you see riders just getting absorbed by mud there, I think it's really the question, especially after such a steep downhill, is this really safe? We saw a couple of crashes. Thankfully, nobody got hurt it was pretty much on the limit. But nevertheless, I don't think it's necessarily something that should have been cancelled. But for the rest, I agree with most of your points. I mean, it was a lot of walking where Nieuwenhuis was the best. Iserbyt had a few technical sections where he was slightly better, but it was hard to make a difference. It reminded me a lot of the Dutch National Championships in Zaltbommel earlier this year. We had a battle there between Nieuwenhuis and Van der Haar. Nieuwenhuis was better on the running sections, Van der Haar needed to go deep, and ultimately compensated by not making a mistake in the final lap, which Nieuwenhuis did. Nevertheless, do you think that Nieuwenhuis might be the moral winner here? I mean, I have to give you some credits. You said it. There's still time in this season. Nieuwenhuis, when the courses become harder, you will see him at the front, and so he did, because this is a very hard course, and Nieuwenhuis was there, second place. Still positives for him, right?
I would look at it positively, to be honest. I think for him, it's from what I heard in his interview, he didn't really look at it super positive. You know, he knew that it was a good race from his side, but I feel that, you know, this was a race that if it would have been happening in December, I think we might have seen a different outcome. I think that it's just, you know, we are still getting to that point where we will see Nieuwenhuis in an ultimate form, if you would put it like that. I think that we are reaching that point, and it's looking better and better every race. I think you can definitely see that there is some sort of an upwards trajectory for Nieuwenhuis, and you know, if I was him, I would be super positive with the result. I mean, I think that for the larger part of the race, he had to believe, and I think many people that were watching the race had to believe that he could potentially win the race. That's not a position that he has been in this season often, I would say. So I think, you know, a good race. Iserbyt was just that little better, and he didn't have an answer in the last lap, and I think that going into November, you know, in November, December that we are coming into, then I hope at least that we will see even a better form of Nieuwenhuis, and I think that we could expect that. And then when we get these type of races, well, I think then it's going to be difficult to beat this guy. But for now, yeah, you just have to take the positives, and I think he does that in a way, and it's definitely looking good for him for this season.
It wasn't bad at all, and I agree with the points you made. I would still like to point out that Iserbyt did deserve this win. He was basically behind Nieuwenhuis for most of it, but Iserbyt must have an insane conversion rate going into final laps with like 2 or 3 other guys, and then actually winning, because he hardly loses battles like that. Every time he just gets away with it, he just does it again. We see it so many times. I mean, Ruddervoorde was an example we had earlier. He did it in Overijse, not only this season. Almost every time Iserbyt goes into the final lap with the group, he finishes it off, and that is a special quality. Do you think that's experience, or is it more just something you have or you don't have it?
Depends a little bit, but I think there are just a certain type of riders that when you bring them to a last lap, there's just no point racing at that, I guess, because then they just have these tricks, and it's just something that they can ask from their body, that extra push. You know, it's something special, I guess. Not every athlete can have that, and I think Iserbyt is just that guy that if you bring him to that last lap, even if he would have been, you know, totally done, he can still find something within himself, and you know, it's hard to describe, but it's just, you know, just something that you just put yourself in the right positions. You just try to be up there, and especially if it is in a race where he has an equal in the race, he could definitely finish it off. And I would say hats off to him to do it in a race that definitely doesn't suit him. You know, there are some technical sections, like you said, where you look better, but the running sections were killing, and they definitely were significant this race. So I think that on a course like this, to be able then to still do your magic thing in the last lap, you know, it's a special thing. And we have doubted Iserbyt a little bit going into the season, but I think we can conclude kind of that he probably went into this season with a different build-up than he normally does, and it seems that it's working out for him at the moment, because, you know, 3 Superprestige races and 3 consecutive wins, so and an amazing lead at the moment in the Superprestige, so it's going well for him.
we have to conclude that so far Iserbyt has been the most consistent rider. We'll come to the riders who weren't there today, or, well, they were there, but they weren't there in the results. Nijs, Van der Haar, Van Toerenhout. Iserbyt has been there every single race, with maybe the exception being last week when he, of course, had that puncture in the European Championships. But I won't repeat everything you said, but yeah, with the short legs compensating, I think he needed to go pretty deep. I'm interested to see what type of course we get tomorrow in Dendermonde. The pictures don't indicate so far that it's going to be a repeat of 2 editions ago, the first time they went there. But when the racing gets underway tomorrow, we don't know how wrecked it's going to be. There has been a lot of rain. It is a low field. I wonder how they will feel tomorrow. Iserbyt said he needed to go pretty deep. I think he will feel that. But yeah, to conclude, very strong race on a course that didn't suit him. Another rider who didn't find a course to his liking here was Laurens Zweek. I thought he did actually do pretty well for that first part of the race. He's a big guy. He's not a good runner. I mean, yes, he's tall, but he's not a good runner. It doesn't equal the same. Too much running here. But still, to be in third for a while, I thought, it's looking pretty good for him. But then in the final 2 laps, he just completely faded. I think it was the fatigue. He was just tired. And then started making mistake after mistake. But I don't mind that, because Felipe Orts on the podium definitely makes up for somewhat a false conclusion I had on Laurens Zweek.
Yeah, I mean, for Zweek, it was... I think that Zweek is still not 100%. I think that a Zweek that would be at a 100% form, and that's hard to say because you don't really know what is going on with him and if what is happening with the level around him. But I would think that he would not have that drop in the last 2 laps. That was a bit too much in my opinion. But we got a Felipe Orts on the podium, and I think that if you look at his last couple of races, it was coming. It really was coming in my opinion. I think that obviously you need the circumstances, and the circumstances were there today. It was a very tough race. There were a lot of top contenders that normally should be in the top 10 that were not even inside the top 10 that weren't even able to complete the race. So I think then you have to be up there, and he did that. He was 4th, then got his way to 3rd and maintained that 3rd place. And I think for Spain and Cyclocross Spain, it's super important, I think, because he's a rider that the Spanish population and the Spanish cyclocross fans really look up to. He's popular there for sure, and it's important that we have a guy from a nation that definitely has some of the better cycling fans to also get them into cyclocross and make that cyclocross community there bigger as well. And there are a lot of young Spanish kids that are watching right now, that are watching the TV, and they're seeing a Spanish champion on the podium in one of the bigger competitions in cyclocross. So I think that it's important. So it's an important podium, and it's very good to see that his hard work is being it's paying off, and I'm very happy for his podium.
It is a good course for Orts, maybe not as many technical parts, but contrary to popular belief, he is a rider that goes very well in muddy conditions rather than in fast conditions. He's become pretty versatile. Now he's also mastering those faster courses. But I find it hard to really place what we are watching here, Issam. It's not a situation we have seen a lot. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think since 2010 we have seen a situation like this with this many riders able of not only winning races. We've had a number of winners this season. We have had a number of riders come close, but also a very large group of riders that can end on the podium. Last week at the European Championships, it was Cameron Mason that surprised by taking a podium. This week it's Orts. Meanwhile, we've seen Van der Haar, Nijs and Van Toerenhout struggle. I seriously cannot recall in modern cyclocross history a time where we didn't have a clear pecking order, because at the moment we know Iserbyt is consistent, but for the rest we really don't know, because Van der Haar, one day he's there, one day he isn't. Nieuwenhuis, one day he is, one day he isn't. Ron Haar, maybe yes, maybe no. Van Toerenhout, maybe it rains, maybe it snows, maybe the sun is out. You don't know what's up with them. And if I'm just thinking, for the past years, sure, when Van der Poel and Van Aert come, the pecking order is clear, but in the past years, we've had this pecking order, and before Van der Poel and Van Aert made the step, you knew you're going to see Albert up front with Nijs, we're going to see Kevin Pauls up front, we're going to see Lars Boom there, Zdenek Stybar. I maybe correct me if you do know a time, but I think you need to go back quite far, like maybe around 2006-7-ish, where you had this situation where there was no clear pecking order, and even then, most of the time, at least from my recollection, the pecking order was clear. It's Nijs against the rest.
Yeah, I think especially on the men's side, it's difficult to understand what is going on. I mean, we were going to get to complete top 10, but we have seen so far that the riders are not really consistent in a way. You know, Iserbyt has been very consistent. We have to say that, and I think that the most consistent definitely this season so far is Iserbyt. So yeah, I mean, it is in a way exciting, but it's also a bit confusing and it's very hard to make sense out of it. And I think that if I look into what we had beforehand, I can't really recollect a situation where we had this. You know, I think if you go just before, you know, the moment Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert kind of entered cyclocross as youngsters, you know, that was a time where you kind of had this in a way, but not to this level, to be honest. And I don't know what the issue really is. Is it really the riders not being that consistent, which partly is true. I mean, if you look at a Van Toerenhout, if you look at a Sweek, those are riders that normally, you know, had a more consistent season, but the circumstances there as well. Van Toerenhout being sick beginning of the season, Sweek having that injury, calf injury, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, there are circumstances at the moment, and I think the field has been getting closer and closer. So if something goes wrong for you this season and you get a setback, it's not that you then, okay, well, I was winning, but now I'm gonna be fourth or fifth. No, you have to really you're really gonna be having a setback, and you really have to get your way through the field again. And I think that is maybe what's up, and it's good. It is getting closer, and there is not really a standard. It's not that we go into a race weekend, you know, we can expect Iserbyt to be on the podium. That is a very safe bet. But apart from that, with the circumstances, you don't really know what's going on. And I think it's exciting, and it's great to see that we have this open kind of field at the moment for podium places and top 5s and even top 10s.
Yeah, I think you made a good point with that 14-15 season when you had Van der Haar, Walsleben against Van Aert and Van der Poel. Nijs was there, Pauwels, Van Toerenhout. But it feels a bit more extreme now. And of course, all those factors you mentioned come into account here. I mean, Van Toerenhout has been sick. Sweek had that injury. Don't want to necessarily repeat everything, but it's exciting. And you could see today, well, those inconsistencies were there. I know we've talked about this before, so I'll just say on our behalf whatever we thought was going on. We had a couple of riders who completely disappeared. We had Van Toerenhout and Van der Haar who both withdrew from the race. Nijs finished but ended something like 21st or something, 7 minutes down. Van Kessel was at the front, withdrew. The leading theory here is just for most guys, and on this course, if you over push yourself, you're going to start making more and more mistakes. It's pretty speed limited, and every time you make a big push, you start making mistakes. We saw Nijs made a mistake in the first lap by trying to ride that mogul section, then fell back. Van der Haar crashed and then also tried to come back, but in their efforts, and the same went for Van Toerenhout who crashed in the first lap, in their efforts to come forward, they made more and more mistakes, and then at some point they were, well, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Van der Haar already in the pre-race interview said, well, I just don't want to break my collarbone here, I'm not going to take too much risks. At some point he dislocated his shoulder, popped it back in. I mean, Van der Haar has a history of that, but it's still pretty crazy. Then pulled or withdrew from the race, makes sense. Van Toerenhout made a ton of mistakes, Nijs made a ton of mistakes. It's just too difficult, and, well, Nijs was a bit further up in the results before he didn't have a bike ready. in the final lap, which was kind of interesting because it happened to his dad, Sven, around 2010 on this course as well. So pretty funny to see history repeat itself, but lots of mistakes, and it really comes down to two words that we've discussed, two Dutch words of the week, Issam. Foutenlast, because the pressure to make mistakes was higher, you push and you just start slipping away in the mud. But especially miserie, because boy, was this course a lot of miserie today.
Yeah, there was a lot of misery, and it was, I think that the broadcast did only tell like 30% of the story of what the riders had to go through. It was tough for the riders, and there was a lot of unfortunate things happening to the riders, punctures as well that have gone unnoticed. And I don't really want to touch that point because I know that then we have a lengthy discussion on that as well on the course. But I think that, just to be very short on it, I think that there were some unnecessary sections in the course that I think that I wouldn't say had nothing to do with cyclocross, but unnecessary. I think that's just the word. That's just my opinion on it. But I think there was just some unnecessary dangerous sections or sections that didn't make sense, like the moguls, that just have no
additional value to the course.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely the word I was searching for. There is no additional value. It doesn't really help the course. It doesn't really help the riders.
Yeah, like especially this off-camber, with the steep run-up. I mean, there were a couple of extra ones added. And then especially like this part where there was this 20-30 centimeter flat line at the top and then a super steep off-camber below. It doesn't really change much. And it's super difficult to actually establish a gap on this course. So I get what you're saying. I definitely like the old course a lot more. Super wide, interesting lines, bankings, and you must think the same.
Yeah, totally agree with it. And yeah, I mean, in the end, we should just be happy that for what I know, there are no major injuries from any of the riders. So I guess I hope that is true, but that is at least the good thing that we held out of this course, I guess.
Well, we can only hope, because I don't know why Van Kessel withdrew from the race. I don't know why Viseuren and why Verstringen needed to withdraw from the race. These were all riders that were at the front at some point, so we can only hope they were fine. And the most misery was caused by these puddles of standing water. Van der Haar said it in his pre-race interview. You just have no clue what's underneath and you get stuck, and especially on the women's side we saw that quite a couple of riders were just absorbed by the mud in that section. And then the other sections, I mean, you can question, as you say, it's not that it has nothing to do with cross, it's just doesn't make for the greatest cross race. But let's look at the entire top 10, because there are still pretty much one name that I still want to point out. Iserbyt took the win ahead of Joris Nieuwenhuis and Felipe Orts. Zweek managed to take fourth, but was actually under pressure by Toon van der Bos, who rode a very strong second part of the race. Then we had Niels van der Putten in sixth ahead of Cameron Mason. Maybe a tad disappointing after that second place last week, but we can't expect that level of consistency from him just yet. Eighth place was for Wietse Meeuwse ahead of Gerben Kuipers and Kevin Kuhn. I would very briefly like to touch on Toon van der Bos, because he put in a very strong ride. I just said that I think Nijs, Van der Haar, Van Toerenhout overpushed. Toon van der Bos showed the way to move forward after not being great away at the start. He took his time and just kept pushing his own pace, and on a course like this where tiredness builds, he was able to keep doing his own thing, running faster than the rest, riding his own lines, and eventually almost clinched that fourth place. But fifth is still a very good result for Toon van der Bos, and he is a rider that needs to excel on courses like this. Let's go on to the women's race then. Anybody who had some hopes for close racing in the absence of Fem van Empel unfortunately was disappointed today, because after Mari Schreiber had the fastest start, it was Alvarado who took over, and already in the first lap she got away as Vorst, who was in her wheel, made a front flip into the mud. Alvarado built a lead of almost 1.5 minutes at some point, took it easy in the final lap and won by over a minute. The second place looked to be in hands of Vorst for pretty much the entire race, but in the final lap the tiredness started to build for Vorst, and in the span of 10 seconds she crashed twice. She was caught by two riders that were Manon Bakker and Aniek van Alphen. Just as they went into the final lap, Van Alphen actually took the lead from Bakker. Van Alphen passed Vorst and also managed to stay ahead of Vorst after those crashes I just mentioned. Van Alphen ended second, ahead of Vorst. Bakker just missed the podium in fourth. A win for Alvarado. It was a strong display, Issam. It was actually a really, really strong display. She was so much better than the rest, just in every aspect. Technically, running, everything. It was looking proper good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing that we kind of were afraid of, that in the absence of Van Empel, we were going to be looking at Alvarado was, became reality. And we got to be honest, it was a course that suits her probably the best out of the field. With the running, with just how tricky the course is in general. I think that she can just utilize so much of the attributes compared to the other women in the field that it's just, the race will come to her anyways. From the start, knew exactly what she had to do. Schreiber was having that fastest start, but that didn't really matter. And from there, it was just, I wouldn't say a cruise, because she always had to be on her toes, and it was a difficult course, but, maintained it very well and was able to just build on that gap and make sure that she brought that the race home. So, very, very good job from Alvarado, and it looked very good as well. So it was, deserved victory from her side.
Well, it's interesting that you think this was a good course for her, because definitely until Vorst started suffering with that knee injury, I would have said this is the best course for Vorst. Vorst is normally, or at least was until 2 seasons ago, a better runner. I would normally favor Vorst, but Vorst, as we know, has not really been the Vorst that we have seen until Oostende World Championships. She also missed 5 World Championships with that COVID infection, which hampered her. But it hasn't really been the same. Of course, after winning in Oostende, she still won the World Cup in Kokzijde, had a couple of good results, but the past season and a half it's been on the decline, and that continued today, because Alvarado winning by such a margin over a rider like Bakker and Van Alphen is expected, but Vorst, just again, like on the Koppenberg, these were races where 2 seasons ago I would have said this is for Vorst, but now not anymore. Last year there was a bit of a battle between Vorst and Alvarado here. I would think that it's a bit disappointing for Vorst the way things have been going, whereas Alvarado seems to have made that step back. She's had blood disease, or I don't exactly remember what it was. Maybe it was Pfeiffer, but I don't exactly recall. But Alvarado had that one season when she really struggled with her health and has made that comeback from that. Vorst has had, injury after injury, bad luck after bad luck, the knee injury which has been lingering last season. It was especially a bit worrying to see that Vorst also in the final lap and a half just completely collapsed. Like, she had 20-30 second lead over Van Alphen, and that just plummeted mistake after mistake because of the tiredness. I mean, Van Alphen did a good race. She had a pretty bad getaway but got into it really nicely, but to be beaten by your teammate when you had such a lead and should normally be your team leader is, again, not a good sign for Vorst. And it's not really to bash her, because she said that her season prep has been hampered by that lingering knee injury, which is solved now, but nevertheless it's just, again, not a hopeful sign, and it can't be easy times for Vorst.
Absolutely, but I think, I don't know what race it was, but it was this season for sure. Maybe it was Koppenberg, but I'm not sure. But there was an interview during the race with Camille van den Berg, the coach for the Cyclocross Reds on the women's side, and he was talking about some back issues as well. So and that she struggles a little bit with the faster courses, and or it was the other way around, that it was the faster courses that she shoots a little bit better now, and that the what kind of harder races are a bit more difficult because of the labor on the back. But I also have the feeling that when the results are not really there, it's just a lot of things that you then start to feel in a way as well. I mean, it's I had it when I was running quite well regional. I mean, if I had a race that I won, the next day, I mean, the recovery was going very smooth. I had no issues. I could I could train again, and I was up there. And when you had a race that was kind of disappointing in a way, it's a totally different recovery day that you have after it, because you then just it's just a negative spiral that you end up in. And I think that probably, I don't know how you can relate to that, but I think a lot of athletes can relate to the difference between having a good result or a bad result and the recovery from that. And I don't know, I think, like you said, she was a big prospect, and still is, to be honest, because I don't think it's too late yet to still make some improvements. But time is ticking, and the step that Alvarado was able to make, she wasn't able to make. And that Van Alphen now is also coming up. I don't think that is necessarily a great thing for her and for the confidence, so it's tricky, it's difficult, and I hope that she can find the solutions for the issues that she has, and bounce back from it. Because the danger in this is that when you end up in such a negative spiral for 1, 2, 3 seasons, it's gonna be a hell of a lot tougher to get out of it. So,
well, those are all very good points, and definitely that negative spiral is something you want to avoid, which is just why I hope there's somebody taking good care of her. And then I don't mean her partner, Vincent Bassans, I don't mean her family. I just hope there is professional support, because what I feel is lacking in the world of cyclocross most of the time is somebody who takes care of the riders. Because if you see that Alvarado is, when she was sick, and they only tested her blood values after the season, and only then came to the conclusion like, hey, you've been sick the entire season, of course things don't go as well as you want. There's a lot of stories about riders who struggle mentally and then don't necessarily feel the support. I just hope there's somebody that takes care of Vorst, because of all the factors you mentioned. And it's definitely not all lost for, and you can come back, and that's proven by Alvarado, who's done it. I mean, she's improving and improving again, and it will need to be seen if she can ever reach the level of Van Empel and Pietersen. I think it will be difficult, but nevertheless, it's not all lost for Annemarie Vorst, and I would hope to see her get a good result again, because it's been quite a while since she won a super important race. I mean, yes, she won, well, when is actually the last classified cross she won? I think we might need to go all the way back to that winning Kokzijde, because she's won Maldegem and Oostmalle 2 years in a row, I think, and she won Ardooien this season, and she won those USCX races. But really in the big Belgian crosses, it's not been that great. But somebody who was pretty good today was Sanne Cant, and let's run through the top 10 actually. Alvarado took the win ahead of Van Alphen, Vorst, Bakker and Cant. 6th place was for Ribeiro ahead of Schreiber, Betsema, Baroni and Frank. Good to see Bakker get a good result, 4th place. It's a course that suits her, but deserved that she gets a good result after, 2 weekends of bad luck. Europeans didn't go great. No good luck in Ruddervoort and Maasmechelen either. And it seems to be that Krenal Corendon team is in a pretty good place, because Sanne Cant had a very, very good day today. 5th place. It's been a while since I saw Sanne Cant like this.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think that it was when when she was participating in the first couple of races, I was like, ooh, this is going to be a tough season for her. It didn't look good. I mean, Maasmechelen definitely was a race where I was like, okay, this is going to be a very tough season for her. But from there on, it just went all upwards, I guess. I mean, when you're at your lowest, then from there you can only go up. And I think that is exactly what kind of happened in a way. I mean, the Europeans were definitely not bad as a result. And I think that, Koppenberg was a bit harder to place and wasn't all that great, to be honest. But, the Euros were quite good. And I think now with this race, she was even a bit disappointed with 5th, because she felt that that there was some chance for her to get on the podium. I think, there was 1 or 2 punctures, or there was some unfortunate things that happened to her during the race, which is the sport of cyclocross always happens in a way. But after the race, instead of being happy with the result, was a tad of disappointment even. for not making on the podium, feeling that it was maybe possible today. But so I think that is a total change from how she started this season, and it is good to see, I think. And I don't know why that is, that that this race went very well for her. We have to see how that will go on over the course of the next couple of races this season, because consistency also for her has been an issue also last year. So we have to see how that goes. But this race was definitely very promising, and it's great to see someone that meant so much to the sport and is in the later years of her career being able to still be in healthy condition and being able to race and compete on a very respectable level. And I think that is just great to see, and it's great to see that Cant was able to snatch that fifth spot deservingly, so that was good to see.
The leading theory Cant has is that she's growing in this season, a bit of a different approach to usual, since she's quite focused on the road right now. But yeah, it was good to see. I saw a pretty good Rochette for the first part of the race. She faded. I don't really know what happened, because I think she could do better than 12th. Van der Heijden was somebody who, prior to the race, was talking about, despite the course, being able to challenge for a podium or a win in the absence of Van Empel. And the 13th wasn't her day either. And then I would like to end with a remark on poor Marie Schreiber. I mean, we can talk about her tactic to start fast and then fading, but that flip in the last lap, holy smokes. I think she needs to be cleaning herself until tomorrow morning to be clean at the start in Dendermonde to get all filthy again, because that was a lot of mud around her, and there are people who pay big money to get skincare treatment like this, but she just got it for free in the final lap of the Superprestige in Niel. Then to end the episode, let's look at some results in the rest of Europe. We had the third round of the Coupe de France take place in Albi. Rémi Lelandais took the men elite win ahead of Joshua Dubois and Tony Perriou. The women's race was won by Amandie Vidon ahead of Amandie Foucounet and Laurine Durafou. There was racing in Rimarov for the Toy to Toy Cup. Marek Konwa took the win ahead of Jakub Riemann and Matthias Fiala. The women's elite race was won by Joyce van der Beke ahead of Katerina Duderova and Nikola Noskova. Noskova is making a return to cross with the focus on the World Championships in Tabor. She is a former podium sitter at the U23 European Championships, got a top 10 at the U23 Worlds in BLS, so always nice to see riders return to cross. Then the fourth round of the National Trophy Series took place in Painston, the UK. That is, Thomas Mean took the win ahead of Daniel Barnes and Toby Barnes. The women elite race was won by Helena Day ahead of Ruby James and Hope Inglis. There was racing in Spain where González Higuaín Macho took the win ahead of Mario San Milan and Javier Gisbert. Lucia González Blanco took the win ahead of Sodria Rodriguez Revere and Irene Bragado. Finally, the Norwegian National Championships took place. Mats Tubas Gelende took the title on the men's side. Mi Bjørndal Ottestad won the women's title. Issam, thank you for being here. We will be back tomorrow with a podcast about Dendermonde.
Yes, thank you for having me. And let's see what the World Cup in Dendermonde will bring us. And all the discussions that we had beforehand. Now we can finally focus on the racing in Dendermonde itself.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I just realized that I messed up the placements. Rochette was 13th and it was Van der Heijden who was 12th. And with that, let's hope, and on the note that we hope that Denise Betsma has a better start than today, because her start was horrible. And from there she recovered to 8th place, but she never really recovered from that bad start. So new chances tomorrow. Thanks everybody for listening and goodbye.